Hey everybody, what's up? This video is a $50 match I played on full tilt, and against a guy that had a little bit of a different style. He was kind of a pot stabber, which is a style that I often play myself, trying to pick up pots, and it was a bit difficult to deal with him, but in the end I managed to come up with a sort of counter strategy. Alright, so started the match, and he limps. Flop is 3-4-4. Got no idea if that hits his limping range or not. I just fire out. He calls. Now I've got a gut shot. There's also a decent chance he doesn't have much here. Make a weak continuation bet on the turn. And now if he did have a 3, it's been counterfeited, so there's a chance I'm ahead. I bet 40, get called. And he called me on Jack 9, which suggests he's a bit of a station there. Alright, limp with Jack 6, and he donks out 20. I've got no hand, no draw. Fold that one. Okay. Queen 5, I've got a gut shot. This time he bets pot, and I think that's a bit expensive, and if I do hit my gut shot, then I'm not going to get any more chips into the pot. 2, 3, 4, 6, no one's going to be stacking off there. So I fold that one up. Here I've got King 9 and a limp. He fires out again. He hasn't raised pre-flop, and I don't know what his style is exactly, but this is the sort of board I'm going to try and float. And now that he checks on the turn, I bet 80 to try and take it down. And he folds. This is the hand that really made me think that perhaps this guy is betting when he doesn't have anything, just trying to take down the pots. Alright, he's pretty passive pre-flop. Once again he fires into the pot, and I let him have that one. I don't really want to be firing back, trying to sort of take it off him at this stage. Just going to make sure I've got a good feel for the way this guy's playing. Alright, I try and take this one down. He calls, and I check. 80 on the river. That's looking pretty ugly. So I guess he must have called with the king there, or with 2 clubs. Alright, here I've got a gut shot. I bet out. He raises me, and this is an error that he's made by making the raise too cheap. I call. Now I've got a double gut shot, and he bets 100. Now he's sort of pricing me out, so I'll let him have it. And not much is happening. I'm sticking around sort of 14, 80 in chips, sort of basically where I started, and he hasn't raised at all pre-flop. And once again he fires out, and this time I'm coming over the top, and he instantly folds. That works pretty well. I guess I'll have to try that again. Alright, 9-10 offsuit. Now we've got 10-2, and he fires out. Happy to let him have that one. Not really the sort of board that I want to 3-bet him on, because he'll call any time he's got obviously an 8-7 or 3, 2 hearts. He'll call if he's got any sort of draw, and maybe even with overcards, so it's not the right board to float him, I don't think. But I will be looking for the right spot, either to float him or to immediately 3-bet him. Alright, and at this stage I'm getting the feel that this guy's pretty much betting at every opportunity. Here he min raises me. I'm getting 3-1 sort of as the immediate odds to call this. So I do hit middle pair, which is nice. He bets 60 into an 80 sort of pot, and I have to think here, I mean, it's a coordinated flop. You would think he wouldn't be betting unless he hit it, but it might just be a normal continuation bet. And now another 60, and I think I have to give it up now. It's 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm not sure if he had it or not there, but unless the board wasn't too dangerous, I really have to give up in that spot. Alright, ace queen, try a raise, and he calls that. There's a pretty horrible flop, and I just check it, and now I'm going to give it up on the turn. I know that's pretty weak play, that I should have probably made a c-bet, but I just figure after he limps and calls, that's going to hit his range a lot more than it sort of hits mine, and he knows that it's missed my range, so, you know, I'm probably giving up a little bit easy, but that's okay. Alright, we hit bottom pair, he bets 20, and I'm coming over the top of him, and he folds. So basically when he stabs, the vast majority of the time it seems to be, you know, pretty much rubbish. So now that I've really worked that out, I think I'm going to take advantage of him. Alright, here we hit top pair, which is nice. And he bets 60 into the 80 pot. I'm not folding top pair here. 6, not a great card, but it could be a lot worse. It could be an 8 or a 10 or a king. And he checks. And really I'm betting on the river here to block him and for value. And he folds. Alright, I min-raise with queen 10 and he folds. And he min-raises. This is not a great flop for me. But for 40, I think I'm going to see another card. I might hit a magic little 3. And now that he's checked on the turn, I mean, I'm feeling pretty hopeful, but, you know, the 6 of clubs doesn't help me too much. Perhaps I should have fired on the river there, but never mind. Alright, king 7 suited. Got a nice flush draw, and I'm not raising him because I want to see my flush cheap. I hit it on the turn, check for deception, and 8 into 160 pot, and I can't get any value, so pretty clearly he's just betting on rubbish, firing out on rubbish over and over again. Here he does it again, but not in a good position to call him. But I'm definitely going to be looking for opportunities to 3-bet him when he sort of stabs out of position. Now he comes over the top of me. I call and check because I've got a sort of gut shot, and 120, I think that's a little bit expensive. I mean, he's basically, when he raises me, he's telling me he has the jack. He could also have something like a draw. 5-6 is possible, and you know, this is pretty close. And in fact, he had 2 pair, so you know, not really a great call. Maybe I should have folded it up. I mean, originally he said he had a jack or let's say a jack or better, so top pair or better, and you know, he had what he said. Alright, I fire out into this one and take it down. And here he bets, and I come over the top of him because I know whenever he bets, it's been rubbish so far, and he folds. He makes a little raise. I'm getting good odds. I check, and he makes a very weak looking bet into 120 pot. When I see this, it's normally one of two things. It's either he's as weak as he says he is, or he's flopped a monster and he's trying to get me to come over the top. But I'm raising him to sort of find out where he is. If he has the monster, he'll shove or make a big re-raise, and if he's weak, he'll either call or fold. And he folds. Pretty weak play from him there. Alright, limp with 8-3. He bets, and this is one of those hands where I said I was going to look for opportunities to 3-bet him straight away. And I did. Alright, fold on this one. Not the right hand to raise him. Too low, too easy for him to either have hit it or have overcards, which makes his call kind of automatic. Alright, bottom pair, he bets, and you can probably guess that I'm about to raise him here, which I do. And he folds the hand. Makes a min raise, pricing min, so I call. Middle pair's nice. He's looking weak, but I just call. I think after that weak bet I'm probably ahead, but I want to make sure the board doesn't get too dangerous before I commit too many chips. And the board does get sort of horrible. And now I'm betting on the river just to sort of block him. And he called on 7-7. So you can see that when he bets weak, he pretty much has been weak so far. Alright, I limped with ace-ace. The reason I limped and didn't raise is because I figured he might be a bit upset after taking that beat and I might get a raise pre-flop from him, in which case I could have re-raised. Probably pretty low percentage, but I thought it was worth a shot. Alright, he bets. Obviously I'm raising. And he folds. So this sort of 3 betting is working really nicely. Here we hit middle pair. He's checked. That's a bad card for me. He bets 30 looking weak. And now I've hit 2 pair. I just try 60 into the 180 for value. And he calls and shows ace king. Looked weak, but wasn't. If he had a bet more, that might have worked better. Alright, jack 10. We've hit a draw here. I bet it and get called. The 8's a pretty horrible card. He's giving me good odds to try and suck out, so I do. But can't manage it. And he's 90. I mean, there's no way I'm looking that up on jack high. Alright, I bet into this pot. He calls me, and not the greatest of turns for me. 90, he can have that. Alright, and when he checks and then calls, I think it's actually probably him trapping me. And the 9's an absolutely horrible card. And 120, that's pot on the river. Pretty confident I'm not good at this stage. I think what he's doing is betting when he doesn't have it and sort of checking when he does. You can see he slow played his king on the hand before. I mean, that's probably what he's up to. Alright, here we've got a draw. And we hit our draw on the turn. I check it for deception. He checks. And now I bet 60. He raises me to 210. Generally, I think I'm not going to get his whole stack in here unless he's got me beaten or it's a tie. So there's not much value in raising. So I'm simply going to flat call this. And he had the wrong end of it. And that's a nice little pot to put me in the lead. Alright, 7-2, the hammer. And I check because when he's checked in the past, it's been sort of strength and he's bet for weakness. Now he bets I can call, and in fact he was actually weak this time. My 2 with a 7 kicker was a monster. Alright. And I check this, let him have it. You can't win every hand. And here he raises min again. I really hate this min raise. Give me good odds. Unfortunately, I haven't hit here, so I'll fold. Alright, middle pair. He bets. Obviously, I'm going to come over the top, which I do. And he folds. So that bet, he kind of hasn't really adjusted yet. Here I make a raise on ace 10, get called. It's a pretty nice flop. And I'm probably happy to get the chips in here against a random opponent. But the question is really how to do that. I check, see what he does, and he bets 40. I come over the top for the pot size raise, and he folds. So he was just having a weak stab there. But I'm pretty happy to take down the pot. I don't want to see overcards like a jack or a queen or a king come there. Alright. Here he bets, and whenever he's done this, he's generally been weak. So I come over the top, and he folds. And him stabbing and me raising him's turning into a nice source of chips. Min raise again. Horrible flop. Horrible turn. And horrible river. So we're not going anywhere in this hand. And now he bets pot, which makes me think that he's the sort of guy that, as I said before, he sort of checks and tries to trap his good hands, and perhaps bets his weak hands, or he just tries to pick up pots. Alright, 10-6, and here I've got a gut shot. He looks weak again. I make my raise, but no, he has a monster and shoves, or a draw, who knows, and obviously I'm going to fold that up. So that's the one time that the raise backfired. Alright, I bet in the paired board, get a fold, so I can pick up pots pretty easily. Limp with ace jack, and once again he bets, which has always been weak. I raise him, and this time he raises to 200, and frankly I don't really believe him. So I'm going to call. I've still probably got some outs. King on the turn I think is a really lovely card. Now, if he it reduces the chances of him having a king, and I can probably push him off a 9 or a 4. He bets 80, and I raise him to 240. He's in a pretty difficult spot here if he's got a 9, and a very, very difficult spot if he's got a 4, and he folds. So that was a nice pot. I'm just basically pushing this guy around a little bit post-flop. Right, here we hit 2 pair, and I check it, trying to induce a bet from him, and he obliges. I come over the top for 120, and he folds. Maybe in hindsight that was a bit much. I should have just tried a min-raise, but the board could easily turn into a straight or something, and if I'm giving him good odds, it's going to be hard for me to drop the hand. If an 8 or a 9 or a 4 or a 5 or whatever comes to give him some sort of horrible little straight, I'm really going to have a hard time dropping this. So I'd rather raise to 120 and have him fold than raise to 80 and give him odds to call and hit. Alright. Queen 2, hit top pair, it's nice. And this time I just flat him. He's been I've 3-bet him so much, I don't want him to start shoving on me and I'm not sure. I pick up a beautiful 2 on the turn, and just bet 40, trying to get some value. Pretty sure I'm ahead, but he folds. So confirmation once again that he's still stabbing on nothing. And this is what you do when you get these guys that stab on nothing. You simply have to raise them widely and make them fold. And if they're not going to fold, then you need to raise them when you've got the goods and make them pay. And this guy's got a fold button, so I'm abusing that as much as I can. Alright, not the sort of flop to bluff. And 7 doesn't help. Now there's a good chance that this is a split, or that my king is ahead. And 160, there's a good chance my king is not ahead. So I folded up. Alright, 5-8, and we've hit middle pair, bet, and he folds. So far everything's going pretty well. He limps. He's down to 630. Here I bet, and he calls me. Jack on the turn, as I've said before, reduces the chance that he does have a jack. So I bet 40, and now he raises, and I was discussing this hand with a very good player. I just LOL'd or laughed out loud, and he's an excellent heads-up player. He said he'd probably shove right here considering his chip stack, and I've got some sympathy for that. I mean, I expect him to have raised with a jack straight away. I don't really think he's got a jack, but I flat call, and the king, hard to know if it's a good card or not. Check, and he bets 200, and by not raising on the turn I've kind of put myself in a difficult situation, but the board is so drawy that I wouldn't be surprised if he raised on some sort of draw, a semi-bluff raise. He's got outs if he can hit his draw, and obviously I'm not really giving him credit for being on a jack. He's trying to tell me he's got a jack, but I don't believe him. So, good chance my 7s are good. And the other thing is, he hasn't really made a particularly big bluff. If you are going to bluff, 200 into a 320 pot is not going to cut the mustard. I mean, if I was bluffing here, I'd be betting at least pot. So I call, and he had a sort of gut shot and an overcard. That's a nice pot, and that's pretty much crippled him. Now he's down to 310, and I've just got to finish him off, but I need to be careful not to double him up. I limp, and he checks, which is nice. He didn't shove me pre-flop, which makes me think he probably doesn't have a king in his range or a good queen. I take a stab and take it down. So when people are low, they're going to be shoving most aces, most kings, Broadway cards, obviously pairs, and when the flop comes like this, good chance he hasn't hit it. Alright, Queen Jack, he limps, and this is sort of a flop which he may have hit the low cards, and if I try and represent the ace, seeing how low and desperate he is, and how much there would then be in the pot, i.e. 150, he'd have to shove with a 3 or a 5, possibly even a 2 or a 4 or a couple of diamonds, whatever. So I'm not going to try and steal this pot for those reasons, simply because he'll be forced to shove on a lot of hands. The 9, and I'm not sure where I am, and, at the moment, there's not much value in me trying to take this pot down. I've got a little bit of showdown value, and my queen high with a jack kicker is good enough. And if I had have bet, he had a gut shot and a queen, he might have shoved, and I would have been in a difficult spot, probably not able to call. So, I'm kind of glad that I played that one down, and that worked out pretty well. He's very low, so I fold because he's pretty much forced to shove. Alright, A7. He limps, and I'm sticking him in there. He's only got 4 big blinds, plus the one that's sitting there, and I'm happy to get it in with A7 suited. And he folds. 2-4. I'm not limping with his stack size this small, because he's pretty much guaranteed to shove. So fold it up, and now we pick up a beautiful hand at just the right time. He shoves on King 3, the Crabbler, but Ace King is there to gobble him up. And good news is he hits a king on the river. Bad news is he's out-kicked. So I hope you enjoyed this match. It wasn't that long, but it does show you a strategy for dealing with these guys that constantly stab at the pots. And the strategy that I use is just to come over the top of them, to raise them straight away in a lot of hands. It puts them under pressure. It takes the initiative away. They have the initiative when they're betting, but when I'm raising them, it takes the initiative off them, which they don't like. So I think it's a good technique. It will set you up for when you hit a good hand, you'll raise and they won't believe you. And generally it's just a very annoying strategy to use, and I enjoy using it quite a lot. So till the next video, take care, and I hope you run well.